What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a P.O. Box, and Locals, Patreon. And all of these, all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to, provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. So I was supposed to record with Marty Bent today. Today is Monday, January 26th, and he got something with weather wise, and so I'm rescheduled with him from tomorrow. And I'm like, Marty's out, then we bring in Tom Brady, bring in Collum.
Sloppy seconds.
We bring in Dave Collum, and bring in the Terminator of podcasts.
I did Marty about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 3 hours.
As we were saying before we recorded, I really like Marty. He's a good guy.
I'll tell you, there's some podcasters out there, and he's one of them. I think he's very good at what he does. He's a very good conversationalist. He's good on both sides too. He's good on when he's talking to people on his show, but he's also very good on the guest side. I am awful on the guest side, I think.
Because you're ugly. What can I say, Mike?
I have a face for the radio.
Well, Marty's good in that he can hold up the conversation or let it run. He seems to have a good sense of rhythm. So if I'm on a roll, he lets me roll, and if I need help, he helps me.
Well, but he can do both sides of the microphone though too, as the guest and as the person that is. I hate to say interviewer because Melody and I got an argument about a discussion about interviewing, and I said I'm not an interviewer. I just talk to people. I'm not a journalist. Yep. I'm not an interviewer. I'm not any of that.
You record it. You record conversations.
Right. This episode is brought to you by Vaulted, launched by McIlvaney Financial Group. The simplest and most affordable way to own physical gold and silver. Physical gold is the only asset outside of the control of the government and banking system. They can print dollars, but they can't print gold. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to vaulted.blbvux.net/coffeeandamike. One of the best compliments I ever had was after one of my conversations with Ed Dowd, which that would be a fascinating to have.
I was just listening to Ed. Eddie and I go back about a dozen years, probably. I have to remember, but we used to have long phone calls late at night. Eddie would be a fun. Eddie's getting kind of dark. I actually sent him a DM the other day where he made reference to how the money was flowing in to support companies that are building digital prisons for us. And when he said it, he looked rattled to me. He looked bothered. I mean, it looked like it got to him just saying it. So I think Eddie is probably in my camp now, where he thinks that the mushroom cloud is beginning to appear on the horizon.
But are you surprised by any of this, though?
I'm surprised at how long it takes. The other thing that's hard to imagine, which haunts me a little bit, I watched The Big Short the other night.
Such a good movie.
It is, and at the very end, there's this empty trading floor, and no one's there, and there's just shit everywhere, and you're left with a sense that no one saw the carnage coming. No one understood the damage that would be done by it, and they retrieved it with ridiculous monetary policy. Ridiculous not necessarily mean they shouldn't have done it, although one could argue they shouldn't have. But it was ridiculous in terms of the magnitude compared to anything that anyone could imagine. And so I actually don't think the next one's going to work. That's my model.
I've seen that movie now a few times, and I'm one of those guys that likes to watch movies multiple times.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
And I don't see a lot of new stuff, and people, bust my balls for that. Or a lot of shows I don't watch. Most shows I don't watch, but I could watch a movie, 10 times. I don't know, just
No,
I
I
like doing
get it.
that.
There's some that it just seems to be entertaining no matter how many times you've seen it.
And but with that movie though, at the end when towards the end when Steve Carell's on stage and he said, "I just know that regular people are going to have to pay for all this,"
Right.
and and that's the way it always is.
And then this week, you got Larry Fink saying shit that's driving me bananas. Right? You got Larry Fink talking about all the shit that the World Economic Forum has to do and digitize everything. And it's like, God, someone shoot Larry. I mean, he's just, you realize that the guys who run the world, there's no mechanism to stop them from doing what they do. There is no mechanism. There's none.
But this ties into, I mean, what I said back in 24 in regards to, yeah, they might do away with the WEF, and I'm hearing a lot of people saying, they're going to Davos. Trump was going to Davos and to crush Davos, or not crush Davos, but remove from the WHO, but it's just a WEF 2.0 in my opinion, because these tech people, and Larry Fink is part of that. I mean, they're not ideologues. These are transactional people, and
Right.
they're building the instruments to move this globe into the new direction that it's heading. So, and I don't think that's being blackpilled. It's just the way it is.
No, I think that's right. And I think they kind of thread the needle where they do not care about the common man at all. I think they're really sociopathically unaware of the common man's plight, except for to the extent that it could cause them trouble. So, as Maduro learned, as Gaddafi learned in a big way, as Saddam learned in a big way, there's nothing more dangerous than being an ex-dictator, and so you don't want to become an ex-dictator, and so they try to thread the needle and make sure that we don't actually get mad. Do you find it odd that not odd isn't surprising, but too coincidental that the ICE battles in the street are in the same city that the huge corruption was uncovered 3 weeks ago, or whatever, right?
Well, you say that, and I was on my run this morning. That thought entered my mind. I'm like, the timing of all this. First of all, the Nick Shirley. And the guy that he did the video with was named Bob. He had no last name. I didn't hear a last name.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, somebody else pointed it out to me. The guy Bob, just Bob. Not Bob Smith, not Bob.
Bob, just Bob. Well, Nick Shirley was also in the White House about 6 months ago. So Nick Shirley is not just some schmuck from the street.
This wasn't a new story. This is something that's been around for a while. So why is it coming out? Why now? And then all of a sudden you have ICE in Minnesota, and is it?
But we're never going to get all those billions back from Minnesota.
But it's happening all over the country. It's not just Minnesota.
I know. That's exactly right.
And it's not just Somalia either. It's not related to just one ethnic group.
Well, it's not Somalia at all, to the extent that they're just frontmen. I mean, they're like the dime bag sellers on the street corner.
But there's other ethnic groups, I'm sure, that have participated in this fraud.
Yeah, like white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Let's start with that group.
How about over the weekend? I didn't see any Somalians out there protesting in Minneapolis. No. So if people say that they're dumb, they're not that dumb, because they're not out there when it's 20 degrees, 20 below.
Right. Adam Carolla said it really well, where he pointed out something. This will piss off the women, but they should think about it, because I think there's truth in it. That women's liberation, which is certainly good in theory, in practice, it actually has created a generation of women who have the right to have their voice heard, have the right to do what they want, things like that. But they have lost sight of the fact that that it's given them the right to be an asshole, and they don't seem to realize that they're, you see these women on dating sites saying, no one will date me, and I go, well, maybe it's because you're a douchebag, right? Maybe you're not what you're. And Brett Weinstein the other day, I was listening to one of his podcasts. He says men and women don't get along now. There really is a divide between men and women, and he says this is a big problem. And they're just not. They're not doing. They're not. Each doesn't have their hunter-gatherer role that they evolved to do. Right? We've evolved to do it. We're not doing it.
Have you heard the new acronym? It's not new, but the acronym AWFUL.
No.
Affluent.
Maybe I have.
AWFUL stands for Affluent White Female Urban Liberal.
I have heard it. And no one wants to be your friend, right? So you wonder why you're hated, because you're being a punk ass bitch, and guys can do it too. So the guys have been beaten down to the point where they're no longer alpha male in any flavor whatsoever. There's so many non-alpha males out there, and we evolved to have these roles that we play, and they're tricky. You know, a chick's got to find a spouse who is a provider, a protector, you know, and at the same time won't beat them and will actually help care for the kids, right? That's a knife edge. That's a tricky thing to find, and it's really tricky if you treat the guy like a sack of shit.
Yeah, that's where Neil Howe and I were talking about this, and we disagreed on the. I mean, there's never one singular factor that.
No.
You know, there's everything's gray, not black and white. But I said, you know, the feminist movement, the boss bitch, you know, be married to your career. You don't need a man. You don't need a family to, you know, take care of you. That's caused absolute destruction. And he responded with, well, you know, the men out there today, you know, they're not real men, and, you know, women can't find real men. And, you know, so, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think the feminist movement and the idea of boss babe and I don't need a man, and, you know, so what's the what's the fine line with all of it, right? I mean, we're not the fine line, but what, you know, how do you move it back towards what it once was? I don't know if you can.
Well, I think it evolves its way back. I think it just kind of happens in a very Strauss and Howe sort of way, where some generational rollover occurs and all of a sudden traditional values reappear and things like that. If you're lucky, if you don't destroy the world in the process.
But you know, let's go back to Minneapolis for a second, because, you know, I heard a line the other day of, you know, there's people out there that have predicted 10 of the last 3 crashes, where it's always like doom, 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 you know?
Right.
And I'm taking a step back from that and looking at things, and Minneapolis right now to me it feels like there is a civil war going on right now. Now, it's not the Civil War that, you know, from history books in the 1800s. And I don't think you don't see a North versus South, line up, ready, aim, fire, reload.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But right now, between the state and the federal, you know, it is a civil war.
It is, but it has such amorphous boundaries, right? That is the problem. So there is kind of a civil war, but it's some sense it's likely to be. It's not. It has this, on the surface, the relationship of, you know, right versus left, whatever that means, you know, one side versus the other. Walter Kern and Matt Taibbi were talking about this, and, you know, you got the anti-ICE crowd out there. Forget about whether ICE is doing it right or not. I think it's the wrong way to do it. If you want my opinion, I think you can't clear illegals out one at a time with a group of 10 cops. It's just too inefficient. You got to find another way.
Well, it tells you that they were never, this is what Ed Dowd and I were talking about. It tells you they were never serious about mass deportations, because if they were really serious about it, you know, and Carl Denninger was the one that really initially brought up the idea to me, why not go after the employers and the landlords?
That's exactly right.
And you wouldn't have all these theatrics, you know, of all these clickbait, videos to trigger everybody. And I think both sides want this to happen.
I certainly do not.
Oh, you don't think that? No, but I'm talking on the elite.
I don't want it to happen.
But on the Civil War, but to me, there's a civil war right now between the elites. I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but there's a civil war going on between the elites and both sides. I don't know if you want to use a game of chicken but they both want this.
I'm not sure the elites are fighting each other.
You don't think?
No, it looks like a game of capture the flag, maybe. I'm not willing to say uniparty, just like I'm not willing to say the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions are the same team. But they are still on the playing field trying to win the game. But afterwards, they'll go out and get shit-faced and, bang chicks and do whatever. And so I think, but what's appalling is two things troubling. One is they're using the masses to attack each other. And I've never seen it in my lifetime that I remember so much stirred up hatred across, within socioeconomic groups that are close to each other, right? Not elites. And the other thing that really bothers me is the idea of using lawfare to go after outspoken masses, guys with podcasts, and suing them and things like that. That really is problematic. If some guy sued me out of my net worth, if some guy sued me into bankruptcy, I'd kill him.
What was Matt Taibbi and Walter Kern talking about?
Well, so Walter was saying, where is the right? So you got the left-wing protesters protesting ICE, right, and causing trouble. And you got the ICE guys who are not well equipped to handle this. It's not clear they have the marching orders that are clear and things like that. So they're probably blowing it. I actually don't watch it very carefully because it seems so, there's not a lot of information in it for me. There's nothing to be learned. I'd still rather read about Erica Kirk in Romania. But Walter said to Matt, well, where's the right? Where is the right? And Matt was missing the point. And I actually reached out to Walter and said Matt was missing the point. Matt kept saying something about, well, you got the ICE guys. And that's not what Walter was talking about. He's talking about where are the guys with beer bellies and bowling scores. Why are they not out there with their baseball bats smacking heads of left-wing protesters? And Walter said, that will be a catastrophe if they decide to do that. That will then become the Civil War. But right now, it is left-wing street-level people against ICE. What if the right-wing street-level people jump into the game? And then now you really got a brawl. Now you got street fights. Now Bloods versus Crips, you name it.
They've been calling for the right street level, though. I mean, I've been hearing about that since 2020 and have not seen it.
5 years is not a long time.
6 years. 6 years. Well,
6 years. Whatever.
But I mean the continuousness. I can't even say the word. We've had this happening now. It's been ongoing since 2020 with the Floyd riots, COVID, and so I just haven't seen it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there were hints of it. Like there were right wingers out there demasking Antifa types, for example. And then you had January 6th. That was the right. Wasn't exclusively the right, but it was heavily right. And what happened to them? They got put in prison. So I'd find the people who were behind imprisoning the January 6ers, and I'd charge them with treason and send them to jail for the rest of their lives. I've got no patience left, right? So you can hear the sort of the Civil War thinking gurgling up in my psyche. I'd find if I had a son in jail from January 6th and I was getting word out that he was being tortured by a guard, that guard would be pushing up daisies. I would not wait for that guy. I might walk up to the guy and say, here's the deal. If you don't stop today, it's over. And if one of your friends does instead of you, it's over for you. So you better tell your buddies to lay off my son in jail because he shouldn't be treated this way. And if you don't, you are going to not breathe another breath with me on this planet. And I don't know why that didn't happen. Maybe it does, and we don't get told about it. Maybe it is happening. This is really militant speak here, right? I'm expressing great frustration that there is the alternatives. There seems to be no mechanism to get fair treatment in the courts and things like that. So, okay, we can do it your way, we can do it my way, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Like I think I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, and we were talking about he's older than me, and he was referencing how you've seen these types of scenarios before in history where the federal government has gotten exchanges with, say, when the steel workers were trying to unionize. I wasn't familiar with any of this, and there were shootings, there were people got killed, and this is another flashpoint.
But they did unionize, though. But they did unionize. So I'm not a particularly pro-union guy, but it's time. It's time for labor got way too powerful. Management became a bunch of wusses. So during the Carter era, for example, the steel workers and the various powerful unions could just demand anything they want, and they just gave it to them because they were afraid of the strike shutting down the industry. One of the biggest moves Reagan ever did was told the air controllers to take a hike, and he held firm. He held firm under conditions it seemed like he couldn't hold firm. I don't even know how they flew planes. I don't know how they flew planes. He fired them. Where'd they get the air traffic controllers at that? I don't know, but he fired them all. And that gave management the sense, oh, shit, we can do that too. So that took a way overbalanced, way labor union dominated marketplace and shifted it in a heartbeat very, very quickly. It's probably time to go the other way. It's probably now the pendulum has gone too far the other way, and you got workers who have shitty situations. They should probably unionize. They should probably. So.
How do you? But at that point, though, I mean, and that's where. How does that pendulum go back in that direction at this point?
They just do it. They just do it. I don't know. I don't think. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens in history that's not terribly premeditated, right? What started the Arab Spring? Do you remember?
Well, it started with Egypt, right, with Mubarak, because he was the one that said he was going to not seek another term. And then the military asked him to leave, if I remember correctly. The military asked him to resign immediately.
See, I would say it started the day that one incredibly flammable Tunisian lit himself on the steps of a government building. I would say that was the moment that it started. One guy did it.
But wasn't Hillary and Obama the ones that I mean...
Well, there's a whole bunch of things that take place after that, but he was the spark. And all of a sudden, it just starts rolling, and then it goes emergent, right? Then I remember our State Department when Egypt was going to shit in a handbasket, right? And I remember our State Department looked like deer in the headlights standing at the podium, trying not to say anything because they didn't know what the hell was going on either. They were losing control of their foreign policy. So it just happens. It just spontaneously erupts, right? The vandals, who are the guys who crossed the Rubicon, right? Who are sometimes it just happens.
Well, remember Gaddafi? He had all those people all those rebels on the run, and it wasn't that NATO started bombing him when that was
right.
ultimately
We knocked
overturned.
over Gaddafi, right? But then the question is, why didn't we do that? Libya was very stable. Libya was one of the more stable Middle Eastern countries. I actually think our foreign policy was such that, with the exception of, say, Saudi Arabia, our foreign policy was to make sure no one got stable. It seemed like every time someone got stable, we didn't like it. Syria was stable.
And
Libya was stable.
And they couldn't get rid of Assad at that time.
Well, but why do you want to get rid of Assad?
Well, that's what with Gaddafi didn't make any sense back then either, because Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a good guy, but he was controlled by the United States. So
Right.
why did they allow?
I don't know. I don't know. Why did we basically bomb Yemen? You say, oh, the Saudis bombed them. Yeah, right. They didn't bomb them without us giving them the nod. Why? I don't know why. I would, one could make the argument that we're being told what to do so by another foreign power.
But wouldn't it have benefited them for things to remain?
Who's them?
Really?
Well, I don't know who them is.
Oh, come on. Who's them?
You mean the Israelis?
Yes. Yeah.
No,
Israel.
they like their enemies to be weakened.
Localized, right? That's what Kevork was saying. They like
Localized, disorganized, non-militarized, right?
that's the goal.
We've been fighting Israel's wars for them for quite a while, right?
Well, and that's the. You follow him at all? Syriana Analysis, Kevork Almassian.
No, I don't even think I could pronounce it.
He yeah, I have him on pretty regularly. He's a fascinating guy, but he's from Syria. He's from Aleppo, and so we were talking about that the other day in terms of Iran and how they've backed themselves into a corner, but the United States' goal is not.
Who, Iran?
Yeah, Iran has, because what's happened in Gaza, what's happened.
How did Iran? Tell me how Iran backed themselves in a corner.
Hezbollah, by not providing support to Hezbollah, and how they were localized. Their upper regime got decapitated by those pagers.
Right.
Losing Syria.
So that's not backing yourself into a corner. That's getting your upper management blown to bits.
Well, no,
pagers.
but I mean, they're boxed into a corner now. It's like Syria's gone. That was another one of their outposts. Hamas was one of their outposts.
Is there any doubt Israel would love us to just bomb the living piss out of Iran? Is there any doubt?
Oh, I don't know if there's any doubt. I mean, we're not there,
Okay.
but it sounds like that's what they want. But what he said, what Kevork said was interesting because, it seems to me now they're not doing full regime change. Well, it not even seems they're not doing in Syria. They did, but like in Venezuela, for example, they didn't do a full regime change. They just removed one person, kept the regime intact.
Right.
The controllable
so
aspect.
What was that about? What do you think that was about? What's Venezuela about?
Are we shifting away from Iran already? I want to finish my thought on Iran.
Well, you mentioned Venezuela.
Well, we'll come back to Venezuela, but with Iran, if they remove the whole regime, you're going to have you've got a population of 90 million plus. Where are these people you're going to have a lot of people flooding out of the country. These neighboring Arab states don't want that, similar to Cuba. So the United States would like, and what Kevork was saying was they'd like to localize Iran more to where you might not have a regime change.
Isolate. When you say localize, you mean isolate?
No, just more decapitate them or limit them.
Right. Why though?
So there's not.
Why do we want to decapitate Iran?
Well, it's not us. I think it's Israel.
Okay, so why do we do what Israel wants?
Well, that's the real question, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a rhetorical question.
I agree with you.
But this is the problem. This is the problem. I don't. We could get along with Iran. I'm sure. I'm confident we could get along with Iran.
Well, the people there, they don't want to live in a. This is what Kevork was saying too. They don't want to live in a extreme Islamic government anymore.
Right.
So, they are also, and the fact that the sanctions have crippled them economically.
How did that extreme government get in there? Right. We knocked off Mossadegh, and then they knocked off the Shah, and then the extreme government got in there, right? But it ultimately is a consequence of all sorts of shenanigans of Western power chess match, right? Saudi Arabia is an interesting case because Saudi Arabia has now got this radical Wahhabi population, right? And they somehow horse traded away the educational system to the clerics for something else, so that they could get all the oil. Who knows what? But then they looked up 20 years later and found that the clerics raised a bunch of radical Wahhabi types. What a shock, right? And so Western influence in the Middle East, just seems so destructive to me. It seems like we're just killing tons and tons of people.
It's never going to end.
Well, I don't doubt that either.
All right.
Well, I do. Actually, I do. I'll tell you what would end it is if I think it might end if somehow all of a sudden the Arabs got together and took out Israel. That would end it. Potentially, or it could lead to a nuclear holocaust. There's a lot of possible avenues. But
Kavor talked about too. He said that they want Iran to stay intact as well to keep Turkey at bay, which I thought was interesting.
It's so complicated to me. I'm so unqualified to know why keeping Turkey at bay. What is keeping Turkey at bay? Why does Turkey need to be kept at bay? What are they doing?
Just getting stronger with their military, I guess. They have a strong military presence, and the fact that they're Muslim. I don't know.
Is there something like 2 billion Muslims in the world? I mean.
Well, they were involved in the overthrowing of Assad. Turkey was.
Right. So they did what we wanted. This all seems like Game of Thrones to me, except more evil. Right? It just seems like Game of Thrones. It just all these different groups just trying to whack each other. And here's my dream of Trump. This is my Trump model. Let's assume Trump is trying to get it right. Forget about whether you can accept that assumption. Just stay with me on it. Just say, let's assume Trump's trying to get it right. Here's the model that would make sense to me. Trump recognizes that we're entering a multipolar world. That when he stood up at Davos, he said, look, this system's not working for the United States anymore. Lutnick said that. And for the first time Lutnick opened his mouth, I agreed with him. He basically said that. And so if Trump sees us heading for a multipolar world and he wants to get ahead of it, then what he's doing is drawing dotted lines and saying, here are lines you guys can't cross. And what he's done is he's basically circled the Western Hemisphere and said, this is the Monroe Doctrine. We're going back to it. We're going back to those rules. And if that is really what his thoughts are, I can live with his moves in Venezuela. I can live with his moves in Greenland. They make sense to me, right? He's saying, keep your hands off the Western Hemisphere. If we could get people to keep their hands off the Western Hemisphere and have us keep our hands off the rest, seems like a win to me. Does that not make sense?
But that's the problem, though, right? I mean, when Luke Roman was on here last week and we were talking about how China, they're only taking from the United States gold payment for rare earths or any type of transactions. Is
that right? They're now only accepting gold.
Well, I shouldn't know if I say only, but they're accepting gold and they're taking that over the dollars.
Well, I'll accept gold for stuff too. What you talk to these guys way more than me. Is the sentiment amongst your clientele, your guests, is the sentiment your victims,
my portfolio of
your people is the sentiment
my podcast
people,
portfolio.
Is it that the gold market is just running like crazy because that's what markets do, or is something broken? Is something fundamentally shifted? What's the sentiment?
I still think back to my conversation with Matt Smith and the revaluation. But also, I could reference that. I could reference what Ed said about there's no trust in the system anymore, and that's what's driving it up.
So that's a fundamental change. That's not just a mania. This is not just, AMC, meme stock time.
The silver story, you might be more familiar with this because I haven't done too deep of a dive, but reading generally about the Hunt brothers and what they attempted to do. Do you see something similar in terms of some entity, multiple groups trying to corner the silver market right now to drive this price up?
Well, I'll tell you what's different.
You know that story?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's different this time is when the Hunt brothers did the heavy lifting for the current bull market. When I say that, I mean When the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market, silver had never become a really precious commodity like that. When it went to $50, that's really precious. What the Hunt brothers did is they shook all the loose change out of the system. So all the big jars of quarters all got sold into the system and have all been presumably melted down. And all the gram of silver that no one cares about got sold for, for the weight of the silver and stuff like that. And so now all that silver that in theory could still be lurking in people's paws have been pried out of their paws in 1981. Hundreds of years of silver collecting that people say, I don't need this, I need the bucks, I'll sell it. Now the silver supply is really more of a bullion supply, not silverware, not silver coins, not any of that stuff. And so I think it's a little less elastic, the supply-demand curve. I think the Hunt brothers failed to estimate how much silver would fall out of the woodwork when they chased the supply up. And then, of course, Wall Street found a way to put them down. And
didn't they have the backing? Didn't they have like Saudi backing or Middle East backing at that time too?
The Hunt brothers?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that part of the story.
Mm.
And
the Federal Reserve
with silver, someone told me that we have enough silver that if we mined no more silver at the rate of consumption, we still have 50 years worth. So it's hard to argue a supply-demand curve.
But didn't the federal government come in with the Hunt brothers too? Volcker was the one that stepped in and changed the rules of the game.
Yeah, there was some of that. I think that's right. I think they found a way to put a squeeze on them, made them sell off their highly leveraged silver position. Yeah. But this one may be a super short squeeze on the silver futures market, which they say is 300 to 1 paper to physical. And what I don't know is if, let's say, COMEX is about to snap, right? I think there's fine print that basically says, okay, we don't have to provide the silver. What that will then do to the price of silver is unknown to me. It certainly says the demand for physical should go up, I would think, and therefore the price of silver should go up. And I noticed this morning when I got up, silver was up something like $7. I've been getting told by silver buffs for many years that silver would reach some point where it's jumping by huge amounts, but somehow watching it play out is still a little surreal for me. And as I've probably said several times on your show, I was buying silver in a fund that was 28% below NAV when silver was $5 an ounce. So I was paying more like $4 an ounce for silver, $2.20, $2.30 an ounce for gold. And so this is a rather extraordinary experience for me to watch this finally play out. Silver and gold, gold before it ran was already beating the S&P by 2% annualized since the year 2000, was beating Buffett since, for 30 years. It had already done well. It is now doing weller. Oh, someone just pounded silver down by a big gold down. Yeah, so there was a...
What's silver at right now?
So, well, it's they hammered it down to up $5.75 an ounce. I paid $4 an ounce, so that somehow seems like still a pretty good day.
But it was $109 earlier today. Is it still?
It got up to more like 115, I think.
Oh, did it really?
It got over 115. Now it's 108.
What about gold?
Gold is sitting at 50.35. It got up to around 5,100. It bounced off 5,100 a bunch of times. Maybe that's some resistance point, as they say. So the one that I like, as you know, is platinum, because I can make a case for platinum based on supply demand that I have not been able to shoot a hole in, and that is that the above ground platinum supply seemed to be a known quantity, and it's in the ballpark of at present prices around $6-7 billion presumably. But it's a quantity of platinum that at current prices a hedge fund could buy it all. Obviously, it can't, because that would drive the price up. But at current prices, they could buy it all. The platinum production has been in deficit for 4 or 5 years. And at the rate of deficit production, platinum supposedly will last, the above ground supplies will be consumed in 2.5 to 3 years. How do you not like that story? I mean, that means you either got to start ramping up the mines like crazy. Now, imagine if all of a sudden on top of that, South Africa loses its shit and stops producing platinum because the Marxists take over, and the white elite start getting massacred even more, and things like that. The entire global supply of platinum, mine production of platinum, could go to shit. You get about 15% from Russia, 70% from South Africa, and there's some in North Dakota, and but it's so the platinum story is bullish by any historical sort of metric. It's not just a price. When Mike Oliver or something says, look, gold's going to go to thousands, silver's going to go to 500. He's one of the very best technical guys, but he's still talking just price. The platinum story is about there's no F in platinum. As in, if you say it fast, there's no F in platinum. There is going to be a platinum shortage soon, according to the numbers. I haven't been able to torpedo it. I went to Grok and asked Grok. I went to ChatGPT. I dug up numbers independently and did the math myself, and it keeps coming out to about 2.5 years of platinum. And how do you not like that as an investment?
What's that at right now?
Platinum must be pretty good. I'm going to go to PPLT. I'll look at the price of platinum. I use PPLT because I don't need physical platinum. I want physical gold. I want physical platinum. I want some physical silver, but platinum's down today after being way up. It is currently at 2,700, and it was hovering around 900 a year ago.
So it's tripled.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is when it started to rise, which I was watching like a hawk, it not only started to rise, but the volume in PPLT all of a sudden went up like 5-fold overnight. So all of a sudden there's just a huge amount of action, and it was almost one day. It just went from no interest to interest, which might have meant that some hedge fund said, I'm going into it, right? So, a year ago I talked to Peter Bookfire, and he says he just bought his first platinum. I talked to Einhorn, and he said he was taking platinum more seriously, although I know he didn't buy it. So I think there was some guys with some sway that were starting to look at platinum saying, shit, there's a story here, right? There's like the Big Short where they figured out the market was fucked up. The housing was fucked up, right? And so I like the platinum story. It's the only story that's based on just pure fundamentals. It's not a price. It's fundamentals. I don't know what the price is going to do because if you run out of platinum, what price is it? How much does it cost to buy platinum that doesn't exist?
Well, the other thing, though, too, is does it make you wonder in regards to precious metals and even the stock market? And I don't want to take credit for this. This was my friend. We were chatting. You can't keep your money in dollars right now. So we've been boxed into a corner. Like I'm even looking at my stuff and I'm like, I got to move some of this because it's just going to continue to get devalued because, this global monetary reset, devaluation of the dollar that's occurring, you got to put it into something. So it's forcing people to go into metals or go into the market, or so maybe the stock market doing what it's doing is legit. I don't know.
So here's what I asked Marty a couple weeks ago, and it's still a good question. Bitcoin seems to be locked down in the high 80s for some reason, and I would have thought Bitcoin and gold would kind of lock arms and kind of go up and down together in the inflation protection trade, whatever you want to call it. I would have thought Bitcoin would have followed gold, unless there is a pair trade going on where someone's selling Bitcoin to buy gold or something like that. I just don't know.
What did he say?
He didn't know. He was intrigued by the behavior. I can't say that it caught him by surprise because he watches it pretty carefully, but no, So Bitcoin's been hovering around 90,000 ballpark, for quite a while. Quite a while for Bitcoin is a year and a half. The attention span of Bitcoin is very short.
But doesn't it make you wonder though, in terms of the stock market and these metals, that because you're being forced, right? You have no choice. You can't keep your money in cash.
Well, but But that is ultimately the setup for a disaster. You mentioned someone calling, 10 of the last 3 crashes. I never call a crash. If anyone calls it a crash, they can't quote me saying it's a crash. I will say it's going to get brutal. I'll say it's going to get awful. But crash to me involves short time scale, and I tend not to believe in those. I think this market is just going to rip souls out, and that can be a slow process. But I do believe that we have a huge, huge price correction in our future. And no matter how effectively we put it off, I think it's still huge, and I think it's unavoidable. And I've got Jeremy Grantham on my side, and they're now criticizing him as being an old man who doesn't know what he's talking about and doesn't understand. 2 things he gets criticized. One, he doesn't understand the new economy. We hear that one before. The other he gets hammered for, which I even hammer him for, is his belief in climate change. And I just say, okay, I think he's got it dead wrong, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing with money. Right now, the market is priced to return about 2.5% a year, and that's not a price that makes people money buying equities that are priced to return 2.5% a year.
But the metals on the other side of it, I mean, what silver's done since April, I mean, what is the percentage now? 225% or something?
SLV is up in a year 250%. It creeps me out not because of the world coming to an end creeps me out, not because I don't own it, because I own a lot of it, but because it could be some sort of blow off top, as they like to say. And it could be like it's 1981 and silver's at $49 an ounce equivalent. And then I'm about to enjoy the downside of what was a great upside, right? But I've held silver since 1999, and from 4 to 100, 110, whatever. That's a pretty good return. It's hard to. I tried to talk my dad into dumping his GE in 1999. It was like up 100-fold. And I was correct. I was right about why I wanted him to dump it. But how are you going to talk a guy who made 100-fold on GE that he should dump it? He shouldn't listen to me.
Well, it's hard to guess the timing on any of this stuff either, though,
well,
right?
I forget timing. I don't mind timing. If you could tell me silver was going to go back down to $50 an ounce at some point in the future, I would just dump it now. I don't need to get the top.
Right.
But if you could tell me, yeah, but it also might go to 200 and not come back, then I go, okay, then I'll feel stupid. Not stupid. I've made what? I had something called LabCorp of America, which I sold at 8. That's now 265, right? I've sold at the wrong time. But what I'll tell you is the guys who got stinking rich on Microsoft and got stinking rich on Amazon, got stinking rich on some of these real Apple, the one thing they share one common trait: they didn't sell. So the guys who say it's never a bad time to take profits, bullshit. If you took profits on Bitcoin at $50, you're in therapy, right? There are terrible times to take profits, and so if I had a crystal ball, I'd know whether I should get the hell out of silver.
Oh,
but I don't. I don't.
I'd be asking you to read my crystal. Look for me. What it says I should do in the crystal ball.
But if silver was a market index that was 200% over historical average valuation, I'd dump it in a heartbeat. But there is silver. I don't know how to price it.
Well, what do you think Venezuela is about then? Because I have a theory.
I think it's about the Monroe Doctrine. I think it's about getting control. I think it's a defense against China. And people shouldn't listen to me. This is just an opinion of a guy who doesn't.
We're all
know.
You know what? Here. Let me before you go on. This is where I'm going with this now with my show. I don't believe in the absolutes because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and everybody's guessing with everything here. But one thing I will say, there's no absolutes in any of it, right? Like, I'm not going to, it's this. It is definitely this. It's definitely this. That and the end, like, when people start talking to me about the superhero analogy of the good guys, the bad guys, the blue versus red, and I know I'm getting shit because people are like, they're tired of hearing me say this, but I can't help it. Like, somebody actually did a logo on a coffee mug and said, "This is not a superhero movie," and sent it to me. Because I've been saying that all the time. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
But yeah, there's no absolutes here.
So you know how you'll be able to tell? I said, Mike, if you start wearing your underpants on the outside, I'll know it's a superhero movie. You're the superhero.
I mean, like,
you know, we're not going to vote our way out of this. That's another way of putting it. We're not going to vote for a president who gets us out of this. This is going to be I was on a Twitter Spaces with a guy named Malone.
Kevin Malone.
Kevin Malone.
Yeah, I had Kevin on my show.
And Brendan Ike showed up, and basically Brendan and I stole Kevin's show from him. We really just took over. But you know, that's like your dream show. If you get two people on and they just start chattering,
I love it.
Sit back and drink coffee and
I love you. I love when you and Matt Smith. I mean, you and Matt Smith together is fantastic. I was actually going to ping him this morning.
I love the three ways. In case Menage a Trois worked perfectly.
I love you and Melody together. That's great.
That was fun, especially the first one where we went into satanic cults, which I did not see coming.
So Venezuela.
We're not going to vote our way out of this. No. We're not going to vote our way out. So Venezuela. Here's how I can justify Trump's behavior. If it's Monroe Doctrine, then Venezuela and Greenland make sense. He's saying we're Gulf of America. He's saying, look, Western Hemisphere. If he could get the Western Hemisphere under U.S. control completely, and then pull away from all the rest of those crazy-ass places in the world that I don't think we should be, that's a win to me. That's a win. So if that's what he's doing and the people who hate Trump just can't see it, I can't see it either necessarily. This is a hypothetical, right? This is a Gedanken experiment. But if that's what he's trying to do, well, what bothers me is we'll elect some other numbnut and he'll undo everything. And, so the odds of something sticking. Now, on this Twitter Spaces where Brendan jumped in, and I kept calling out Brendan because Brendan was pre-IPO Netscape, wrote JavaScript, created Firefox, created Brave. He knows Silicon Valley like there's no tomorrow. He knows the tech world. He's smarter than shit. And he made reference to these changes that we're talking about are multi-generational. We're not going to find out at the end of Trump's administration if anything worked.
Oh, no.
We're not going to know.
Oh, no.
History is going to write this chapter in about 20 years. And it could be that Trump, that we're a super tanker and it was going in the wrong direction. It could be he gave it the nudge necessary. Now, again, very awkward nudge, right? And unconventional. People, one time I was on a dinner and someone made reference to Trump's incompetent campaign. He had just won the Republican primary in 2016. And this colleague of mine referred to his incompetent campaign. I said, he just knocked off 12 way more qualified opponents. That's not incompetent. He knocked off 12 of them. And no one saw it coming. That's not incompetence. It's unorthodox. And no matter how unorthodox he is, it could be that could an Orthodox person have done what he's done? No. We'd still be using our pronouns if he hadn't been elected. I mean,
well, the system right now, he's a disruptor. And who was the president that was going around grabbing assets? Was it Eisenhower? Roosevelt? Who was grabbing countries?
You mean ass or assets?
No, assets. Assets.
That was
countries.
Kennedy if it's ass.
No. Yeah.
Who grabbed countries? Might have been Eisenhower, but I don't remember.
What the hell was the name? What the hell was the name of the term that they referred to it at that time? It was
mercantilism.
No. Well, yeah, but the great, not the Great Taking. The
not ringing a bell.
Was it the Philippines?
Well, the Philippines, we were in the World War II. We're dinking around with the Philippines. So might have been Truman. I don't know.
Trying to look it up while you're talking here real quick.
But, Trump, for example, this whole taking Greenland thing, right? And they talk about what a total asshole. What's he doing? He's something like the fourth or fifth president to talk about that. The press, in their lying, skanky, whore-like behavior, forgets to mention that part. This has been discussed off and on for 150 years. And so to make it sound like it's just some whimsical Donald Trump on drugs sort of moment is not correct. It's a lie.
Yeah, I can't find what the hell the name of the term was. I want to say Baron something. I'm sure I'll get comments in YouTube.
Well, if we're doing this live, we would have people commenting.
I know.
Below us.
The Baron.
I don't know. It's not ringing a bell. Not coming to me.
Well, he's also demonstrating right now, this is true political power, where he's grabbing assets. Who the hell was the president, Dave, that was grabbing assets? This is not the first time this has happened.
So Taibbi and Kern, again, they were talking. And one of the things they were talking about, in some level, it's refreshing that he says that he speaks so bluntly. He says we're down in Venezuela because we want their oil. Now, I actually don't think that's what it is, but other presidents would not have said that. And when he stands up in front of the WEF and he says, your system's not working for us anymore. No other U.S. president would have done that. The fact that he actually, let's assume he's not lying, which he very well could be, he certainly is posturing. There's something refreshing about a guy who says, look, the reason we're doing this is because of this. You go, that's right. That's correct. Okay. At least he fessed up. Right? This big superpowers do shit like this. What I want to do is get them to stop bombing the shit out of people. That's what I don't like. Right? I don't care where boundaries are drawn. If I were king of the world and I looked at the map, I'd go, yeah, U.S. should have Greenland. Maybe Canada should have Greenland, not Denmark. Why does Denmark have Greenland? We should have kept it after the war. World War II, we could have kept it. We should have kept it.
But also, he's the United States is showing their true political power right now and just taking things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have the bigger stick. This is the way it is.
How is that any different than any period in history?
Yeah, I had Mel Madison on. He was talking about this in terms of savagery, where the United States was built on.
But it's not savagery, though. It's not savagery. If he takes Greenland, as far as I know, he hasn't killed anyone in Greenland.
No, I mean, I shouldn't say, maybe that's not the right word, but we're taking it. I have the bigger stick.
Garish.
I have the bigger stick. This is the way it is. Power is not fair. It's not morally right or wrong.
Has it ever been fair?
No, it is what it is.
I know. So history shows this is exactly what great powers do. You can't name a great power that didn't do this kind of shit. Maybe the Chinese in various dynasties because they built a wall and said, stay out. But, Britain makes us look like pikers, right? Britain was terrible. And, people get bent out of shape about us taking land from the Indians. And what bothers me about that is, on the one hand, I go, look, you guys, we won. Bottom line, we won. Right? Western power was no match for the Comanches. At first, the Comanches were able to slaughter us, but then we brought in six-shooters. Once we were not doing single-shot weapons, the Comanches started dropping like flies. They were killing us with their ability to shoot numerous arrows and rapid fire, and so they were lethal to us until we came up with a six-shooter. And then there was an 1849 cholera epidemic that whacked him hard and stuff like that. But there is no question we were going to take over the Western United States over the will of the Indians. There's no question. There's horrible chapters in there that are disturbing to the modern person, and things we did that really are disturbing in Indian schools, and there were slaughters and stuff like that. But in the historical context, it was not one of the more brutal takeovers, right? I don't think our goal is to rub them out. I think our goal is just to cheat the shit out of them. And the things that trouble me the most is the fact that we actually signed deals with them using Western law and then reneged on those. Now, they're not going to get their land back, right? They probably own a ton of stuff legally. And we should not have done it that way, maybe.
We didn't do it. They did.
Well, we are a sovereign state.
I always say they. Like I say they now because when in terms of like military operations, when people say we, I'm like, I got no part of this. I wasn't involved in it. They did it.
Well, I think you should pay reparations nonetheless.
You're gonna call ICE on me?
Yeah, I'll call ICE on you. There's
a redheaded Lebanese white guy who doesn't have his papers running around Phoenix.
Right. There's a woman who's an illegal alien, and she's my wife, and she's at 135 East Lake Road. Don't come and get her, no matter what. By the way, today's my 40th anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Yeah. So I've come to terms with the idea, and largely over this year, of the idea that that there's kind of a law of the jungle going on here that you can be bothered by, but there's no evidence in history that it's playing out in an unusual way. And what makes me mad is the people who are too stupid to recognize the same's true in Ukraine. It was none of our business. It was Russia's business. You could argue it was Europe's business, but without us, Europe wouldn't have had a say either. And without us, there wouldn't have been a war in Ukraine, in my opinion. Because Russia didn't need Ukraine. They needed us to not have Ukraine. And we started pushing to get Ukraine because we wanted to be punk-ass bitches to Russia, because somehow we've decided that somehow treating Russia poorly is in our best interest. I do not believe that to be true. In fact, I was hoping Trump would wrap up the Ukraine war, which I believe he can't because Europe won't let it happen. You say, well, how do they stop us? And I go, well, you can't sign a deal that's a good binding deal with an entire continent of people sitting right next door who don't agree, right? That just won't work. And so I think right now Europe is facing kind of existential questions. I hate to say risk, because I don't think Europe's at risk of Russia. I don't think Russia's a risk to Europe. I think the loss of Ukrainian resources is perceived to be a risk, but it's not theirs. It's Ukraine's. And now it's going to be Putin's. And it's because we did it, in my opinion.
They did it, Dave.
They did it. Well, I'll tell you who
joking.
did it. All the fucking people who put Ukrainian fucking flags on their Twitter feeds, who bought the bullshit.
Well, this is what I mean, coming back to what I said earlier in regards to Minneapolis, we'll go back to Russia here in a second, but I got so much shit I put on Facebook yesterday. I didn't think it would get much of a response, but I said, if you go down there, you're a moron. In regards to Minneapolis right now, with all this shit going on, you're a moron.
Oh, I wouldn't go there.
Nothing good is going to come from it. And people were pushing back on me. Your First Amendment. They're not going down there for that. They're going down there because, to cause trouble, in my opinion. And look there are going to be casualties. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. People died. And more people will probably die, get shot, if they continue to go to these things.
Which is worse? Left wing versus ICE in Minneapolis, or left wing versus right wing in Minneapolis?
Well,
Because right now the right wing's not there.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know one's worse over the other. I mean,
well, no. There is potentially though, because
right, if you have left versus right, then you're going to have then you would have a connect here. Okay, so no, if you had left versus right, then you would have the potential to. You never know how this would go, but
right.
the potential would be. It's all theory. It's all theory, but the potential would be kinetic. And at that point, you would have state and local and then federal, and you would have, factions within both state, local, and federal that would be one side versus the other side. And the potential would be for it to go spiral out of control very quickly.
Right.
So to get back to what you asked me.
So I think left versus right would be more dangerous than left versus ice. That's what
I was going to say. To get back to what you asked me, I think what you just said, it would be more dangerous. But in terms of Ukraine flags and people that were buying into that, coming to same like with Minneapolis, you are going to be a casualty of what's happening on the elite level right now. And that's what I think. That's where the elite. There's a civil war going on between the elites. Now we can define what the elites are. It's open to interpretation who that is, but regular people like The Big Short will be casualties of this.
Why did we open the borders so much? Why did Biden leave the borders wide open? What was the motivation for that?
I think he left it open, but I mean, how many people have been legally coming into this country for how long? To change the whole fabric of it.
Well, but here's the difference. So I think the illegals went up by about a factor of 4 or 5, right? I think it was a big multiple. So I think we had 1 million coming over the border a year, and it got up to something like 5 million per year, right? Now, the other thing is the demographics are different. I couldn't give less of a fuck from New York State perspective. The Mexicans are coming across the border to mow lawns and to wash dishes and to do heavy labor, right? They were not a problem. They were in the fabric of our economy, and it was like a don't ask, don't tell sort of thing, right? You would drive by, you see some guy mowing the lawn, he's Mexican. He's not legal. Yeah, but he also was not doing anything that was a problem either. But this 5 million a year, they were problem children.
I think that number was higher. But here's the other thing, though, too, with that, coming back to the legal side of it. And Mel brought this up. Madison.
Okay.
Mel Madison. It's a great conversation that him and I had.
I have to watch that because Mel attacked the shit out of me a couple times on Twitter.
He did?
I concluded he was a dick, but maybe I misread it.
Oh, I like Mel. Mel's a good guy.
Okay, that's good to hear.
He goes on Marty's show a lot, too. I had him and Marty on together. But
unless I'm confusing him with someone else.
But Mel said, here's the thing with having all these people in for so long. Your standard of living is going to go down from that. And I think we're seeing the results of it right now.
Let me ask you this, though. We have 100 million people in the country who are not working.
It's probably higher than that, don't you think?
Right. But that's the real fundamental problem. The fact that the jobs these guys are doing are the jobs that those people would be doing.
I don't disagree with you. It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off of all this.
The question is, if you take away the Mexicans, do those people do the jobs? And the answer is no, because we have a welfare state. You can't have open borders and a welfare state.
I don't disagree with that. I was talking to somebody. I got done with a run on Saturday, and these volunteers were at a park I was at, and they live in it was a pretty affluent area where I was, and not that I live in an affluent area, but these people were talking about, we were talking about Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Do you remember Sheriff Joe Arpaio in Phoenix?
Yeah.
Tent City. Yeah. He was the one when you got a DUI, you had to go you had to be in the tent in the desert rather than the jail system. So you better not get a DUI in the summer because you literally spend and you get bologna sandwich and water.
I might be confused by Mel Madison. He looks like he kind of reminds me of a guy who went at me, but I don't think it was Mel. Sorry, Mel, if you're listening. I didn't mean to hang that on you.
Um,
Maybe he did. Maybe he thinks I'm a dick.
but
Maybe he knows I'm a dick.
but but no. So anyway, with these guys, what they were saying, they're like, well, I said Sheriff Joe, he was the one doing the sweeps at night,
Right.
raiding municipality like buildings in Phoenix, because he was the sheriff of Maricopa County. And this guy was like, well, he was illegally profiling people, and you've got a lot of good people that are Mexicans that are here. And I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. I go, there are trade-offs in all this. There are trade-offs. You
Right.
want mass deportations? The people at the top don't want that, because who's building the construction, and who's doing all this stuff?
Well, let's start simple. And this is something that Trump tries to sell. But if some guy gets arrested and he's an illegal, then you send him home. Now, again, the DACA problem's a big problem, and I'm not insensitive enough to not spot that. And so if you've been here for 15 years and you've been a functional member of society and you get arrested on some DUI or something, no. Here's the problem. Both parties could have solved the DACA problem. They both were in positions to solve it, and none of them chose to solve it. So I don't have any idea what to do with that information besides the fact that it should have been solved. Someone should have said, look, if you've been here, if you've been here for 15 years, you pay tax, whatever, come up with a set of rules that says you get a green card. You get a 5-year green card, right? Something like that. You get something. That would have been fine. The fact that the illegal immigrants are doing shit that you can't get us to do is pretty important to me. But again, the open borders, there's Dissent Lindsey Graham, what a dick. Oh, Mel called one homo I like, one homo I don't. Well, Mel and I are on the same page there at some level. I'm not sure I would have called them homos. Dissent and Lindsey Graham.
So Teddy Roosevelt was doing this. Grabbing assets. Thomas Jefferson, William McKinley. He grabbed a lot. Hawaii. Jefferson purchased Louisiana.
But you know why we grabbed Hawaii, right?
No.
There's a great book called Overthrow. It covers a number of these asset grabs. Asset grabs keep sounding like a perp to me. Sounds like Bill Clinton grabbed assets. We overthrew the Queen of Hawaii in a bloodless coup because the Dole brothers wanted to grow pineapple. That's sketchy. It's what the big power players of the world do, but it's sketchy. And it's not like Hawaii's a bunch of losers, right? I mean, it's not like they didn't get overall, I think they've done well.
Why did Jefferson purchase Louisiana?
Oh, that's easy. That's easy. The French knew they were going to lose it. The French knew they were going to lose it. It was just a matter of time, and so they said, "So we're going to sell it, get something for it instead of losing it." And so they cut a deal. That's what I think Trump's trying to tee up Greenland for. He's trying to set it up such that the Danes, the Greenlanders, whoever has a say, says, "Look, let's take a deal while it's still a deal." Yeah, so the Louisiana Purchase was, sell it for, it's like selling an asset before it goes to zero, right? I wish I'd sold my RSX ETF, right? Wish I hadn't bought it, but I thought it was a good value play.
I thought some of my friends texted me and I said, is it barren declaration or something? There was a term that he referenced in all this.
Not ringing a bell.
Not barrier reef or.
That's okay. You'll remember it. You'll wake up with a start.
I want to get it on the recording though, so I don't get the YouTube comments, and I can respond and be like, "Listen to the whole conversation, douchebag," before you comment.
Yeah, I know. The comments are so predictable now. I read comments. I do read comments, and there's certain comments that I get one every podcast. I get the same comment over and over and over. So there's definitely a can't take it, Thomas. There's some sort of robotic shit. Someone says change your shirt. Someone says quit interrupting. Someone says, which they're correct in saying, You get the obsequious shit that's of no value. And once in a while, though, someone says something useful, and you go, oh. Like, I couldn't think of Metcalfe's Law on a podcast with Marty. We weren't coming up with it. And someone said, it's Metcalfe's Law. And I go, I knew there was a name for it. I don't know. The world seems fucked up. I will not be. One of the things we don't understand in this country is that you can, if history is an indicator, you can suffer so badly. And that we have somehow lived in a slice of the world, a narrow slice of the world, in a narrow slice of history where we didn't suffer. You know, if you were born 100 years ago, you died of an earache. You know, you died of an ear infection. 100 years ago, no. 100 years ago, you could still die of an earache, right? And so it's been, who the fuck? Oh, that's a different phone call. I gotta let it ring. I don't know how to send it to.
You still all right for a few more minutes, or?
No, I'm fine. No, someone's trying to sell me mutual funds or something.
Oh, you buying? Because I got something to sell you right now if you're buying something.
Yeah, I know. Bridge in Brooklyn.
I sold copiers in my previous life. I don't know if I ever told you this. And I used to have to cold call when I was still in Ohio. And I would, my boss at the time would send me out to the field, right? And I go, I didn't know anything about anything. He goes, just go in these offices. This is early 2000s or 2003. Just go out and just ask them when their leases expire in these copiers. I didn't know anything about it, like anything about the industry. So I'd walk in and people would be like, what are you selling? Because you walk in with a tie on and I'm like, well, It depends. What are you buying? People look at me like,
you're right. My son sold replacement windshields. There'd be a crack in the windshield, and they'd get a list, which I think were probably coming from some sort of repair shop saying, you know, here's a list of 10 windshields that have a crack in the windshield somewhere. And they'd get a kickback. So my son would have to sell them. And I go, how do you sell? And it actually was a pretty good deal where you'd call and you'd say, look, we will come to your address and put the windshield in your driveway. Right? You don't need to bring the car in. You just tell us what day to be there. And I said, but how do you sell windshields? He says, Dad, you keep them on the phone. They will tell you how to sell them a windshield. And that really struck me. That stuck with me. I said, oh, that's very clever. It's very clever.
And now you don't have, you know, the idea of conversation anymore. It's like it's becoming a lost art.
Very much so, because people can't even get on elevators and talk to other people on the elevator. They just stare at their phone.
Everybody's got their AirPods in. Like everywhere you go, people have their AirPods in.
Right.
You're walking out of the store, AirPods.
I know. So we are losing the ability to carry out a conversation with someone that we don't know. So when I get on elevators, I talk to people intentionally. Do
you know what my line is on elevators? You'll like this. You know what I always say? When I have a chance that I get on an elevator, I used to say this all the time. People look at me like I was all weird. Depending on if I'm on the ground level and I'm going up, and I'm like, well, if we die right now, this will be good because the elevator is going up. You don't want to die in an elevator if it's going down. And people always look at me like, they either laugh hysterically because you know the elevator going up versus going down. Yeah, right. Like they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I know. Does it matter? Some guy sent me an email asking if you're standing on a scale in an elevator and it was going up and then it slowed down, would the scale read lighter? I said, yes, the scale would read lighter. And he said, no, and I said, no, imagine that if the elevator stopped instantly and you'd go airborne, right? Just like you go through the windshield of a car if the car stops instantly, right? I said, therefore, a gradual stop, although it might not be measurable, is the same phenomenon. So you would release pressure from the scale in an instantaneous stopping of the elevator. And so a slowing would do the same thing. But it wouldn't necessarily be measurable. We got way off topic here, Mike.
That's okay.
So I think people don't understand that there are times in history where all of a sudden, you know, the average Ukrainian did not know that they were going to be suffering. In 2021, they had no idea what was coming. Right? There's over 1 million dead Ukrainians now, and many, many, many have hightailed it out of Ukraine, never to come back. That country is going to be multi-generational repair. So I don't know how, for example, Europe rebuilt after World War II. I was in Bristol, England. You can still see World War II damage. It was probably 50, it was when the Icelandic volcano was blowing off. Remember, and you couldn't fly because of the plume. They thought the planes would be brought down. So I was stuck in a hotel in Bristol. They're suffering. A friend of mine was stuck in a hotel in London, and he was bitching about it. So I sent him a 8-minute short on Shackleton and his being stuck in an ice floe for 600 days in the Antarctic. And I said, you could have it worse. You could have it worse.
Well, I think too, is the whole point of all this and what's happening right now is, what Trump is doing, or the government, the United States, this isn't out of line with U.S. history.
No, that is my recurring theme lately, is the fact that, as brutal as it looks, and again, the thing that bothers me about the Israel story is not that Gaza is a genocide, because Luongo the other day said it wasn't a genocide. I looked up the definition of genocide. It's a genocide. But it's the fact that we have people here that are causing the United States to make decisions not based on what's in our interest. They're based on Israel's interest. Now, the two can align, but they don't care about that alignment. It's Israel's interest. They're American citizens, and that's what bothers me. That's what bothers me about the Israel story. And the fact that the Zionists went at me and said, fuck you, Right. I don't care. You've lost me.
But even localizing it to Minneapolis right now, this has happened before.
Yeah.
And if the military ever gets deployed, which I'm actually surprised that it hasn't yet.
It's not legal.
What, for them to deploy?
You can't. I don't think you use military on U.S. soil.
Wait, with the Insurrection Act?
Wartime.
Insurrection Act, I thought, right?
Maybe.
Didn't Lincoln declare martial law during the Civil War?
I don't know. Now you've got me. Now you've caught me.
I'm almost positive he did.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna fish around. Insurrection Act. Yeah, I'm gonna fish around.
Because he
did.
Did.
I could yet again be full of shit.
I'm looking at right now, declared martial law and suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War to suppress rebellion, arresting dissenters, draft dodgers, and Confederate sympathizers.
Was that legal?
Subjecting them to military. I think the Supreme Court later overturned it, I think.
Saying he couldn't do it?
Though this power was later limited by the Supreme Court in Ex parte Milligan, ruling military trials invalid where civil courts operated.
So the question
didn't Kennedy do the same?
See, I made the argument years ago when I wrote about the militarization of the police, is that it was a way to bringing the military in on U.S. soil, because you just basically turned the police into a military.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
So it seemed to me the militarization of the police was an end run on the habeas corpus whole thingy. The problem is there just seems to be a total absence of rules. I asked, I was on a Zoom call about a week ago with Senator Ron Johnson, and I said,
"Look at you, you big time."
Yeah, it's the second one with him, and I said, we've got all these people doing all these criminal things, whether it's Epstein or whether it's the COVID story, or there's just a lot of highly prosecutable things. Are we ever going to prosecute anybody? And his answer was, it is very difficult to prosecute someone for a crime like that, and inside the Beltway, it's impossible. I remember the first time I was on a Zoom call with him, and there was a couple others there, and someone was saying, well, we should do this and this and this, and he basically said, you're not being realistic. That's not how the world works.
There are things that I'm not even participating in anymore, even though I'm about to say it. Like the whole idea of any type of justice coming from any of this from 2020, I'm not. It's not going to happen.
Right. No, it's not.
The elections this year are not going to get suspended. The midterms.
No. That scream is always out there. There's always
every year
authoritarian state argument. Yeah.
Yeah, like the carousel. It's coming back around again. That how, there's going to be what I just heard the other day. I don't know, like Florida. There's going to be some indictment out of Florida because they can't do it in a DC court. I'm like, okay, we're back to this again. We're coming back around to this again.
Right.
That the midterms are going to get suspended.
We have now forgotten about the Somali daycare centers. That's already in the rearview mirror.
Because now it's the war zone in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. So I agree with that problem, and California did something that I thought was profoundly bad, which California is the incubator of bad ideas. But California, when they said you would not be arrested if you stole less than $1,000, then led to these flash mobs attacking on stores, which then showed the peasants that we outnumber them and that you can do that anywhere you want. And so it was not about the rule. It was about if you decide to go at a jeweler or whatever, you're going to get it. And so it's a lot like parenting where it's all a big bluff. Your kids somehow think they have to follow the rules. And if they ever decide they don't have to follow the rules, you got a big goddamn problem.
Also too, I was talking to a construction supervisor a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying how, they're having thieves, right? They come onto the site at night. And I said, do you even bother with the police? He's like, no. And they get him on camera. He's like, but nothing happens.
Right. It's like that some cities have 911 calls and they have 411 calls, where one is if you desperately need help right now, and the other is if you want to report a crime. And which one gets ignored, right?
We didn't solve much today, did we, Dave? In 90 minutes?
No. If there's ever a 90 minutes where we solve a lot, that will be an epic moment. So we vent, and I worry the fork turning model is going to turn out to be legit.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but Neil and I talked for almost 2 hours, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had great. It was great to chat with him, and but my thought with the fourth turn, I don't know. I mean, the glass is definitely breaking, but you don't know where those pieces are going to fall. And here's the other thing too.
No, you don't. But what I think the model says is the grand finale is ugly.
But it doesn't mean it's necessarily it's going to go that way either.
Well, according to their model, it does go that way.
Well, yeah, but I mean, history repeats, but doesn't necessarily rhyme, too, right? I mean,
you didn't just do that to me. You didn't just do that.
No, wait, why is that bad? I think it's true. I think it's.
If I had $1 for everyone who used that line, I would
just
be
heard
a
it the other
wealthy
day.
Man.
I just heard it the other day. All right,
For the first time?
Well, I know history doesn't repeat itself, but I didn't know the rhyme part. Oh
my God, I've heard that 100,000 times.
What are you talking about? I just made it up. I just made it up an hour ago.
I didn't. It was Mark Twain.
No, but here's the thing. You don't know where those pieces are going to fall. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the trajectory that because of what one person or one group of people says is going to go that way. And
that's right. But what the fork turning model says that it gets fucking ugly.
It could. But we've been through ugly times before.
Well, but those are different turnings. The previous fourth turning was World War II. The previous fourth turning was the Civil War. The previous fourth turning was the Revolutionary War. The previous fourth turning before that was Salem witch trials.
But it doesn't mean that you and I, as individuals, as people, not just you and I, but others, can't be successful through this dark period that we may or may not enter. Doesn't mean that we can't come out ahead, if times get really, really challenging. That's my approach. That's the way I'm looking at things right now.
Well, so that's actually the thing that has made me pause because I always had this sense that I'd be able to watch it from the cheap seats, right? Way up out of the splash zone, and it would be like watching a football game. And then I would be able to protect myself. I'm not convinced that's true. I'm not convinced that by the time this whole thing's over,
It'll never be over, though.
That I no, but we went from Bobby Darin and Bobby Sox and Ned Funicello to the Doors very, very quickly. And then just when you think, remember when Carter was president, it's like we were so down, the country was so despondent, and Reagan shows up. Now, I don't think Reagan did. I think he helped, but I don't think he did it. I think the president of the United States from 1980 to 88 was going to witness the beginning of a boom. And we were going to think of that guy as a great president because we were poised to have a boom. Everything was lined up to have a boom. And it changed very, very quickly, right? Carter, all the pain and suffering of, Wynn and the whip inflation now and the hostage crisis and in the sense. And I don't remember blaming Carter. I don't remember thinking Carter with a dildo. He seemed like an honest guy to me. But Reagan takes power, and all of a sudden, there's a badass sheriff in town. And what's he do right away? He bombs Gaddafi. He fires the air controllers. He did some things to show this time that there's a new boss, not the same as the old boss. And that's where he gets the credit. And then we went into a period where we thought all was lost. We thought we sucked. Our car industry was sucking gas. Everything. All of a sudden, we're king of the universe again, and it happens very quickly. It can turn negative very quickly, and that's where you have to pay attention because it could turn very fast. American Spring.
Do the markets give you any indicator though that there's maybe not panic and worry out there?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good thing then, right?
No, because the markets are profoundly treacherous. I call it the complacency bubble because I think this bubble is bigger than any of the other bubbles. I think the equity bubble is more overvalued than any other bubble. But the equity bubble is just the beginning. You got on top of that the Melody Wright real estate bubble. You got private equity bubble. You got all sorts of bubbles. You got student loan default bubbles. There's just it's gotten into every nook and cranny. The debt, the national debt, corporate debt. It's in every nook and cranny. And everyone is watching these markets going, I know they're overvalued. You can't turn on the TV without them talking about valuations. But they all think the Fed's going to save them. And they say stupid stuff. Like real stupid stuff. Like they'll say, when the Fed starts cutting rates, that'll be bullish for stocks. I go, well, let's go back in history. Fed started cutting rates around 2008. What happened? The market cut in half. Let's go back further. The Fed started cutting rates around 2001. The market cut in half after that. The Fed quit cutting rates at the bottom. The Fed started cutting rates at the top. Fed cutting rates aggressively is the worst possible indicator for stocks. They do terribly. And then people will say, well, if inflation goes up, if the rates go up, gold will go down. I go, you mean like the 1970s where the rates went up and gold went up simultaneously? Are you forgetting about that? Right? So people have no memory. They really believe that although the markets seem insane, you can't look at NVIDIA and not go, that's nuts. You can't look at the AI bubble and not say that's a bubble. But they somehow think the Fed's going to save them. And there's no evidence the Fed's going to save them. There's never been a way overvalued market that didn't become cheap. And if you want to make the argument this market's not way overvalued, have a ball. There's no evidence for that. That's a case that I don't think can be made. You have to use stupid logic. You have to say, the market's not way overvalued. They're just pricing in how profoundly AI is going to change the world. I go, you mean like the tech bubble that dropped to 83% after it was obviously going to profoundly change the world, or the Nifty 50 who were going to profoundly change the world, or the Japanese Nikkei that was going to profoundly change the world, or 1929 where tech was, where the greatest inventions in history were going to change the world. The railroads were going to change the world. They all led to disasters because the markets priced way too much in. We can now all see the markets are screwed up. but we think the Fed, the government, whatever will save us. They won't, in my opinion. And how they won't is not knowable. I never call a crash. I told Pomp, I said, I hate it when my podcast hosts say Collum calls huge crash.
That's what I'm going to do.
Never.
That's what I'm going to do on my headline.
You fuck. And Pomp did that. That's what Pomp did. Pomp put,
I know you hate when
crash.
I know you hate when people.
Bastard.
Can I? Hey, do me a favor. Say that. Collum, the market is going to crash, and I'll put that.
No.
Clip.
Here's what you do. You want clickbait. Collum has changed his mind. The market is not going to crash. One time I read a Business Insider that said Ivy League professor who called Dow 5000 has a new prediction. And I go, who the fuck is that? I open up, it was me. And I go, oh, come the fuck on, right? This is just ridiculous now. So the bottom line is there's never been a wildly overvalued market that didn't get cheap again. You can't name one. It doesn't work that way.
But that's the way it goes, though, right? I mean,
I know, but the boomers are all going to get fucked.
But there's winners and losers in all this. You're going to be fine.
I know. I'm saying
I'm coming to your cabin. I know where the cabin is. I'm going to your cabin.
This idea. I'm up in the cheap seats, but if I have a starving boomer with a gun at my door, I'm not going to be fine.
You're up in the cabin, man. No one's going to find you up there.
But if the
boomers physically can't get to you anyway.
What would Melody predict the house price correction is going to be? How much would she predict the housing's got to come down? What percent?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
20, maybe 30.
Well, I think the whole thing with the housing is, the fraud that Mitch Wexler and Travis have been talking about, and the overinflation of the home value, so that these municipalities can make their budgets and keep their parties going.
Right, but if the boomers lose half the value of their assets to get back to a historical average valuation, that means they're taking a 50% pay cut for the rest of their lives because they're going to get half the income off of their retirement account.
That's why you wouldn't see mass deportations either, though, right? Because real estate prices would totally stabilize. They would crash, and boomers would get killed. They'd get killed.
I agree.
And they're not going to do that. Anyways. They're not going to do that.
I look at the building in Ithaca. I cannot believe we're not in a bubble. There are so many in the last 10 or 15 years, the number of units that have been built in Ithaca. Ithaca is this stable town that has 2 colleges, a few industries. It's so stable. And I just see huge apartment complexes that have been built over the last 15 years. I cannot fathom where all the people have been coming from to fill this real estate.
You should see here. If I told you the stuff going up in my little area here, it's unbelievable. Bunch of stuff.
I could possibly explain your little area as a move to a sand state. I can't figure out what would get you to move to Ithaca. It's just a college town.
It's a beautiful town, though.
But it's always been a beautiful town, so it's just a college.
Maybe
town.
People feel like they're away from. They feel the big college town like that. I mean, I lived in State College, and one of the nice things about it was in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, but you had everything you needed there. You had all the resources you needed there, but you were away from the big city.
Right.
But you were close enough to it where if you wanted to get in the car, we used to joke around. You were 10 minutes from nowhere, and you were 4 hours from everywhere.
That 4 hours is a long drive.
3 hours. Well, because you had Pittsburgh, you had Philly, D.C., Baltimore, New York. New York was probably farther, but
that's not exactly a bedroom community, though.
What's that?
That's, being 4 hours from someplace.
But 4 hours driving, though. I mean, it's a lot of options in big cities. You got to go? No. Oh.
I have to get a new phone number.
Oh. Well, here we said 90 minutes anyway. You want to wrap up?
We can. So it feels like we're on the cusp of shit happening in earnest.
It always feels like that, though.
Well, so you made a person who called 10 of the last 3 crashes. The last 3 crashes, in my opinion, were go all the way back to 1967. Anything else, I don't call a crash.
Well, I was born in
The
78.
big secular bears were 08, 2000, and 67.
Not 1990.
No.
That's what.
There's various diddlings along the way, but the ones that really gutted the system, those were the secular bear markets.
I mean,
Those were the
2008.
painful bear markets.
This whole system would have melted down had the Fed not intervened.
Well, but then they intervened and overdid it.
Right. Well, they
Right?
bailed out the automakers. For
They
God's
bailed out
sake.
everything.
Yeah.
I actually have been revisiting a theory that I had going when I wrote about 08, 09 back in 2000, probably 15-ish, where I knew I'd heard it somewhere, and I finally ran into it. A Marxist economist named Viggy said this. I think, no, it couldn't have been 15 because it was after COVID. It was in the COVID section. He put forth the idea, which I'm inclined to believe, the banking system was showing tremendous instability in 2019. Tremendous instability. That was the repo spikes. The banking system looked like it was going to go into cardiac arrest in 2019. And then 2020 comes along, and lo and behold, COVID lockdown, blah, blah, blah. $10 trillion later, we come out, and the banking system's stable. I'm wondering if the minor scenario is the Fed saw an opportunity to stabilize the banks under the cover of COVID. They said, "Oh fuck, here, let's back the COVID story. Let's back the lockdown. We'll shove tons of fucking money where we need it to go, and we'll stabilize the system." A darker story is that COVID was to do that. That was the reason behind the COVID story. Because I'm not convinced COVID was anything worse than a bad flu.
Well, and the way that it was organized and the way it was carried out, you couldn't have done that in a week.
Right. Oh, they knew how to do it. They planned it in advance.
The messaging, and that's where, and I was on this bandwagon, not bandwagon, but I thought this was coming, and this is where I start to take a step back from all this, and you're like, well, maybe this isn't happening like that. The whole martial law in the United States, you're not going to have troops on the ground and locking down the country. It's too big. You can't do it. And
except they got all the little Gestapo governors and stuff to do it.
Well, COVID was an example of it. They don't need to put military boots on the ground.
No, they just get us all to do it. It's Brave New World. They get us to do it to ourselves.
And tattling on each other, and
Yeah. And look at what happened. Look at someplace like Australia, New Zealand. Oh, those guys went really bad shit. So, but the question is it possible COVID was about putting the banking system into an induced coma? Maybe that was the whole purpose of COVID. And then gave them cover to repair the banking system with vast quantities of money that they could say was to save the world. Because here's what if they had approached the Fed and said, look, we want to lock down, and the Fed said, no, we can't, it'll cause problems, no, we will not back you to lock down society, it would have been locked down. It would not have been locked down.
Yeah, we talked about that before. Well, also, I think people forget that this all happened under it wasn't the exact administration, but the administration that's in power now, that's what it happened under their watch.
Oh, no question. I think one thing about Trump is he's pretty easy to dupe.
I don't buy into that anymore. I don't buy into that. And especially after the jabs, I don't know. I mean, the whole give him a pass, I've heard that, and I'm just tired.
Well, I'm not giving him a pass.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not.
Dupe.
But other people have said that it's on your watch. And just like it's just like the whole thing now with like the good, doing the good things behind the scenes, and I don't know.
Now that's giving him a pass.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that either. And people are a lot smarter than me.
I'm just hoping. I don't think the data is compelling enough to say that he's not trying to get it right. I'm still watching the data carefully, and I'm not convinced that he's made huge compromises. And I think you can still say that's the deal maker. So, for example, his support of Israel is clearly easily explained by saying Trump could look at the situation and say, here's the deal. I can either pick a fight with Israel and AIPAC and, the JDL and you name it, and spend the rest of my goddamn administration fighting these guys, or I can just sign off, get them on my side, and I can do the shit I want to do. Picking a fight with the Israel lobby would destroy your presidency.
I don't think, but I think whoever was in charge, and this is where it comes back to, does it matter who's in that seat? They're going to go along with whatever they want.
Well, I think that's true. I think that's true too.
So
I think
whether it's
figurehead,
whether it would have been her or Biden before that, they got everything they wanted.
But think of how screwy it would have been under Harris.
Don't you think? But we would have ended up at the same result. I think.
I'm not sure that's true because I think
it would have been a different path.
No, I don't. The analogy I like to use is to ask what would have happened if Kennedy was not there for the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I don't mean Kennedy as in he was a specially gifted person, but rather when you look at the Cuban Missile Crisis, the outcome of that, you have to lay right on Kennedy's feet, right? You have to give him credit for us not getting into World War III. You have to give him credit for not accepting the generals who were saying we should nuke the shit out of them, right? And the reason is because Kennedy's looking at the story and going, this history is going to write this chapter and it's going to be about me. I have to get this right. So when I read Annie Jacobs' book, Nuclear War, it's a fascinating book. And I'm thinking, what if Biden was president? There would be nobody, or Harris. There would be nobody. And I have faith. Any previous president could have done this except Biden. There'd be nobody to say, this is going to be on my watch. It's going to be on me. It's going to be my legacy. I have to do this right. And I have to tell those generals to go fuck themselves. I got to get this right. And I don't think Biden could have done it, although maybe. I don't think Harris had a whiff of a moral compass to get it right. So what would it have been? Can you name the people in the Cuban Missile Crisis between Bobby and between RFK and JFK? Can you name anyone else? I can't.
No.
Those are the two guys, right? Those are the two guys. The whole story is about landing on their lap. What if that whole story was about a bunch of guys who were nameless, faceless guys in a committee? We would have gone to nuclear war, I think.
I mean, I can't go that far back because obviously, A, before my time, B, not being as familiar with it. But when you look at right now, I mean, how much does the president itself is he a figurehead, or is
I still think Trump, he can be a figurehead, but I still think he can have the final say. I think Hillary could have had the final say, and I don't think Biden could have, and I think Harris had no capacity to do so. And that's why I think the Harris presidency would have been potential. Now, Biden, it turns out everything he signed was an auto pen pretty much. So we don't know what Biden did. Harris scares the shit out of me that we could have someone that incompetent. Biden, when he was not losing his marbles, which, by the way, I have 2019 tweets saying if you look at Biden carefully, he is showing early signs of dementia. This was not me saying he's a demented fool, which is just a pejorative. I'm saying he was showing signs of dementia before he got elected in 2020. So he was going to the light. He was losing his marbles before we even voted. The fact the Democrats gave us the guy it's just appalling to me. But and maybe it's their confidence that it doesn't matter who's president either.
Well, but also that comes back to, like, is it a blue-red anymore? I don't believe in the blue-red, and
I don't think blue-red is too simplified.
It made more sense. It made more sense. Big tech got behind Trump. They didn't give any money to the other side in 24.
No, you're talking 2024.
No, I know.
No one was behind Trump in 2020.
No, I understand that. They did everything. They did everything they could. They put all the money backing Biden to make sure he didn't get in because for whatever reason it served their transactional interest.
See, anyone that the two parties don't want in there has my attention. So say it can be anyone, doesn't matter, says, but apparently not Trump. It mattered in 2020. And what happened, I think, in 2024 is it mattered until they got close and they realized we just can't do this. And so they cut deals with Trump. Trump pulled in big pharma. Trump pulled in big tech.
Yeah, see,
and he cut deals.
I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe it was the will of the power or will of the people. No, I think that they took over MAGA.
No, it wasn't the will of the people.
Well, I think it was easier for them.
I think the powerful forces said, "Okay, we will let him be president." I think deals got cut, and I think that's where Trump signed off on Israel. Trump signed off on big tech. Look at all he's done for AI, right? He signed off on big pharma.
That's what I love about these, these people, these left liberals. They act like they're such geopolitical analysts. Not to say that I am, but then you ask them a simple question like, "Do you know what Peter Thiel is? Do you know what Palantir is?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, they're very dangerous."
Here's one for you. I was talking to a military guy at the New Orleans Investment Conference. Palantir, everything I can find says Palantir started writing software in 2002.
Yeah, they're not new.
No. He said he saw Palantir software as a military guy in 1996. Which tells you, therefore, Palantir itself was not known to exist for at least 6 years.
But you look at all these guys like Elon, and Elon's worth, what is he, $700 billion now or something on government contracts, and you think that he can just speak his mind? You think he could just say whatever he wants? Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Well, I think he's harder to control than they'd like, but you're right.
They could stop him tomorrow if they wanted him. They know. I believe they know exactly what he's going to say.
They like the fact that he looks rogue. They like the fact he looks rogue.
Because he looks like a superhero. When I saw Jensen Huang on Rogan.
I do not think Jensen Huang looks like a superhero.
Well, the first 15 minutes of that conversation was him talking how he was hanging out with Trump and they decided to call Joe Rogan. That was in the first 15 minutes of the interview. And I said, I think Melanie and I were talking about this. That didn't happen on accident that he was talking like that.
No.
These people.
Jensen Huang.
Look at Alex Karp.
Huang bugs the shit out of me.
Look at Alex Karp.
That guy.
Does he not look like he looks like a superhero mad scientist?
No, he looks like he's tweaking is what he looks like to me.
But the crazy hair and the glasses and like Sam Altman. I mean,
Altman,
by the way,
yeah, I saw an 8-minute, 10-minute history of Altman, a video history of Altman. Altman is just a pitchman. He's not even a techie. He's a pitchman. That's all he is. He got spotted. He just pitches shit. He is the ShamWow guy. He's the MyPillow.com guy. And they somehow figured out he's not this evil genius. He's just a pitchman.
But these guys are all like characters that they've constructed.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Mike.
Where can people find you?
Under my desk.
As usual. X.
And on X, I'm at David B. Collum. I'm going to check one last thing just for fun before we leave. And then I got to go to a faculty meeting that will be tricky as shit. It's ridiculous. Here's what's ridiculous. Now I'm going to brag. If you've hung in there this long, you're obviously so offended by me you're watching the whole way, or you're a fan and so you won't mind. It turns out that I am this year up in my risk assets 21% year to date. How is that possible? That's what's got me nervous. I want to make 1% a month.
Yeah, but you know what though? So maybe the sky's not falling. It's not going to be Terminator tomorrow.
No, I think the sky will fall.
Well, it always falls at some point.
Yeah, and what you don't say, you know what it is? You stomp on an anthill all day long. All day long you stomp on the anthill. And the next day you walk out there, there's still an anthill, right? Is what you're saying. There's also a lot of dead ants.
But that happens through history, right?
I know. I don't want to be the dead ant.
Well, we're all going to be the dead ant at some point.
I know. I don't want to be the dead ant prematurely. So
what's prematurely, though? What does that mean?
I want to die of natural causes, not starvation.
I don't know. My grandma lived to be 103. I don't know that I want to go that way either.
I don't want to go 103 either. How old would you say if you could just die in your sleep?
I don't want to die in my sleep. I want to get hit by lightning in the desert.
I want to get shot twice in the back of the head at 92 by an angry husband.
I enjoy this, Dave. I can't wait for the next one.
Adios.
Mic drop.
Bye.